The night rain had just stopped when the black car pulled up outside the silent gates of the city's most exclusive charity gala, its headlights cutting through the mist like searching eyes, and inside it sat Elena Hart, a self-made millionaire known for her steel composure, flawless control, and a life that had long stopped making room for surprises. Yet tonight something about the air felt unsettled, as if the world itself was holding its breath. She adjusted her diamond bracelet, checked her reflection one last time, and stepped out into the soft glow of chandeliers, spilling through the glass walls of the grand atrium, where powerful names, polished smiles, and rehearsed laughter filled the space like perfume, too strong to ignore. Elena moved through it all like she always did, graceful, untouchable, distant, until she felt a slight tug at the edge of her coat. She turned sharply, expecting a staff member, only to find a small girl, no older than 10, standing barefoot near the marble pillar, soaked from the rain, her hair clinging to her face, and her eyes wide with something far too heavy for her age. Security noticed her too and began moving in. But the girl spoke first, her voice trembling yet strangely certain. "Ma'am, I know that missing child." The words didn't belong in that glittering room. And for a moment, even the music seemed to hesitate. Elena froze, her expression tightening, not from anger, but confusion, because the name missing child wasn't just news to her, it was a story she had tried hard to avoid. A headline that had haunted the city for weeks after the disappearance of a 7-year-old boy named Noah Miller, whose face had been on every screen, every poster, every broken conversation between grieving parents and helpless authorities. Elena crouched slightly, her voice low, controlled. "What did you say?" The girl swallowed hard, glancing around as if the walls themselves might punish her for speaking, and repeated, "I saw him. I know where he is." That was when everything shifted. The billionaire woman who had negotiated million-dollar deals without blinking suddenly felt something unfamiliar tighten in her chest, something fragile and raw that no success had ever reached. Security was still approaching, but Elena lifted a hand, stopping them. The girl looked exhausted, like she had been running for days, and yet there was a strange steadiness in her eyes, the kind that comes only from truth or desperation. "Tell me your name," Elena said softly. "Lila," the girl replied, "and I didn't want to come here, but no one else listened." Those words struck deeper than anything else. Lila explained in broken fragments, her voice shaking as she spoke about an abandoned warehouse near the old railway line, about hearing a child crying at night when she was searching for scrap metal to sell, about seeing a boy with blonde hair through a cracked window, about men who came and went quickly, never staying long, always looking over their shoulders. She said she had tried telling a shopkeeper, then a passerby, then even a police patrol car, but each time she was dismissed as a wandering child with an imagination too big for her circumstances. Elena stood up slowly, her mind racing, trying to separate fear from fact, fantasy from truth. But something about Lila's certainty refused to fade. Without another word, Elena turned to her security chief and said, "Call the police, now." Within minutes, the gala was forgotten, replaced by urgency and flashing lights as convoys moved through the wet streets of the city, following a child's directions into the forgotten edges where wealth never reached. Lila sat in the back seat of Elena's car, wrapped in a soft coat offered by a shaken assistant, staring out the window as if she expected the world to disappear if she blinked too long. Elena watched her silently, noticing the way the girl flinched at sudden sounds, the way her hands trembled even when she tried to hide it, and for reasons she didn't fully understand, something inside her softened in a way she had long buried beneath years of ambition. When they reached the old warehouse district, the air changed heavier, colder, filled with the smell of rust and forgotten things. Police spread out quietly, flashlights cutting through the dark like careful scalpel blades, while Lila pointed with a trembling finger toward a building half collapsed, its windows like empty eyes. "There," she whispered. "He cried there." The moment stretched unbearably thin as officers moved in, breaking locks, calling out, listening to silence that felt almost alive. Then, suddenly, a sound, a faint knock, not from outside, but within. Everything after that happened in fragments, the shout of confirmation, the rush of movement, the breaking open of a hidden room behind stacked crates, and then the discovery of a small boy curled under a thin blanket, weak but alive, his eyes blinking against the sudden light, as if the world itself had returned to him. Elena felt her knees weaken before she even realized she was moving forward, But she stopped at the edge of the chaos, watching as medics lifted the child carefully, wrapping him in warmth, speaking softly, as if afraid too much sound might break him. And then she saw it. The moment Lila collapsed against a wall, tears finally breaking through the strength she had forced for so long, as if the act of being believed had released something she had been carrying alone for too long. The police later confirmed everything Lila had said was accurate. The child had been missing for 12 days, moved between locations by a trafficking ring that had already been partially tracked, but never fully located. Without her testimony, they might never have found him in time. But in that moment, none of that mattered to Elena. What mattered was the way Lila had been ignored by everyone else. How easily a child's truth had been dismissed by a world too busy to listen. As dawn broke over the city, Elena stood outside the warehouse watching the sunrise bleed through the gray sky, and for the first time in years, she felt something crack inside her carefully built world. She walked over to Lila, who was sitting quietly on the bumper of an ambulance, wrapped in a blanket far too large for her small frame. "Why didn't you give up?" Elena asked gently. Lila looked down at her hands. "Because I knew what it felt like to be invisible," she said. "And I didn't want him to stay that way." Those words stayed with Elena long after the sirens faded. In the days that followed, Noah was reunited with his family, his story spreading across headlines. But Elena never sought attention for what had happened. Instead, she returned quietly to the city's overlooked neighborhoods, the places she once drove past without seeing, and she began funding shelters, safe spaces, and outreach programs, not out of obligation, but out of something far deeper that had awakened that night. And Lila did not disappear back into the margins of life as she once had. Elena made sure of that. She became part of a small home filled with children who had learned too early what it meant to be unheard. And slowly, she began to heal in ways no one had expected. Months later, when Elena was asked at a public event what had changed her life, she simply said, "A little girl reminded me that truth doesn't need power to exist. It just needs someone willing to listen." And somewhere in that same city, another child once invisible now slept peacefully under a roof that would not forget her name, proving quietly that sometimes the smallest voices are the ones that save the world.